Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in Hungary. Welcome at Balaton Park. It's here. It's the final day of 2025. We are here to close this year's championship, and we start the day together with Suzuki Swift Cup Europe, race 2 out of 3. We still have one more on today's program to top the complete season off. And it's early in the morning. The entire paddock is just sort of waking up, warming up. It's rather cold here in Hungary, around 11 degrees centigrade. However, it is already time to go racing because the program is packed for the entire day. Cars already lined up on the starting grid with grids reversed from yesterday. And that means in terms of race results. So, for example, the fastest drivers from yesterday being all the way on top and roles reversed. We have got Egon Burkus on pole position in the 1.4 turbo class. Alongside him, Eszter Nemet. Not the best of races yesterday. Most importantly, the Hungarian driver finished behind her main championship rival, István Bernula. And that means that she lost a couple more points in the championship standings. However, the championship leader István Bernula not very far away yet again, lining up third on the grid. That means row number 2, and alongside him it is Benjamin Nagy. Adam Mesáros, yesterday's pole sitter, sat in P5. Alongside him it is Zsombor Pinter. Balázs Hartmann, yesterday's race winner, down in 7th. Alongside him Bastian Frischmann, who did not see the finish of yesterday's race, but we saw when the day was finishing, we saw Bastian Frischmann, or most importantly his car, being driven around the paddock just to check that everything was working properly. The car retired from the race with technical trouble, and Balázs György in P9 at the end of the 1.4 turbo class. Then a couple of free spaces, because we've got 2 grids on the start. You can see it there, a couple of vacant spots to separate the 2 fields from one another for the race start. And then we've got the 1.6 naturally aspirated machines led by Richard Král, starting on pole position in P13 overall, but P1 in the 1.6 category. Ferenc Hartmann on the front row together with Richard Král. Then we have got Dobroslav Karník in third, and András Bilko alongside. Behind them, Daniel Nemes, Zoltán Csuti and Armin Törő to complete the entire field. There he is, Richard Král on pole position. So we're just waiting for the signal from the race control to be released onto the formation lap. 4,114 meters, rather a shorter circuit within the calendar. And it is the final venue for the 2025, not only for the Suzuki Swift Cup Europe, but also for the championships that come later on in our program. And that means also the Renault Clio Cup, Central Europe and Eastern European TCR Championship. In all of the 3 championships, we're going to be closing also the title fights. And in terms of Suzuki Swift Cup Europe, it is István Bernula being by far the closest one to the overall title. 2 races to go today, and a lot more exciting racing action awaiting us yet again. We saw yesterday's races that brought you a lot of beautiful overtaking maneuvers and fights, and we are expecting no less from today's action. Formation lap is currently beginning with Egon Burkus leading us away at the start, so we do have a little chance to introduce and check the racetrack itself. Opened just 2 years back. It's a brand new racing circuit. western part of Hungary near Balaton Lake. So it is a snaky bit to begin with, 2 tight hairpins at the start of the circuit, and then one quicker left-hander, which is then immediately tightening up to this left-hand side corner, which brings us to the back straight alongside the pit straight. We are making our way behind the main grandstand, as you can see, and getting towards the middle part of the track. This is a hard-braking spot, lots of overtaking already yesterday, and a tight right-hander which opens up through a sweeping series of corners. We've got a quick left-hander and then even faster right-hand sweeping corner. You can also see on the inside that different variant that was added this year, also for the MotoGP races. And then we're approaching first of chicanes on this track. This is the back end of the circuit where the track very nearly meets the motorway connecting Balaton Lake with the country's capital of Budapest. You can also see the extended corner where you can take the sort of penalty lap for the MotoGP races. This is not relevant for the car racing. And then back towards the hotel through a sweeping, very quick left-hander, where you've got just enough time to straighten everything out before you have got to go hard on the brakes yet again for the final series of really tight corners. Of course, because it's so cold, we are hard in action in terms of getting some heat into the tires and into the brakes. Challenging chicane, a lot of cars going through and cutting the corner yesterday, and then through the final series of corners right underneath the hotel, back through the final S's and onto the start and finish straight to meet again with the starting grid. You could also see the grid marshals with the signs with row numbers ready to navigate everyone back to their correct grid slots. Each car needs to find their respective position, and also we've got to keep those 3 spaces between the 2 grids. So positions 10, 11 and 12 will remain empty. We also have a few spectators already on the main grandstand. Everybody tries to be either all the way down, closest to the grid, or all the way at the top, because if you go all the way to the top, then you're able to see the opening section of corners, and then you just turn around and see the rest of the track from one spot, which is then good for the viewers. Green flag already being waved in the air, which signals that everything is ready to go here at Balaton Park. And the red lights are on, the red lights are off, and we are underway with Egon Burkus taking start from pole position, but we have immediately an attack from István Bernula in his white Swift, crucially overtaking Eszter Nemet and even taking the race lead into the first corner. That was a good move, good start by the championship leader. Cars making their way through the initial series of corners. No contact, no incident. Great start by István Bernula. Eszter Nemet also getting herself ahead of Egon Burkus. So as a result, keeping her second place, but most importantly for her, she is now looking at the back of the car, the only car that she would love to be ahead of in this race. And it is István Bernula with a rather wider exit of the tight right-hander. We've got a fight for the class lead in the 1.6 category. Bernula leading us away from Eszter Nemet and Egon Burkus. Also Balázs Hartmann getting in the mix. Ooh, and that was a very aggressive maneuver into the chicane, I believe, from Balázs Hartmann. No, that must have been probably Benjamin Nať, who cut the corner, who went way too aggressive under braking and rather decided to cut the corner. He was not really sure whether he was able to make the corner, and he presumably wanted to avoid any crash. Hard under braking we go again with yesterday's pole sitter Adam Mesáros in the rather silver car. Behind him Bastian Frischmann in the blue and orange car. Both followed by yesterday's race winner Balázs Hartmann. Across the line we go for the first time with István Bernula leading from Eszter Nemet and Egon Burkus. Zsombor Pinter with his black car in fourth. Balázs Hartmann up to fifth. Benjamin Nať down in sixth. From Adam Mesáros, Bastian Frischmann and Balázs György in P9. So it is Balázs György trailing the entire 1.4 group. But look at that, Eszter Nemet looking racy, and she deleted the entire gap that she had to István Bernula. So this should be an exciting one now. Bernula trying to take the defensive line into the right-hander. Taking us through these sweeping corners. Eszter Nemet really trying to line up for a move. They will go very close to one another into the chicane. István Bernula therefore not even bothering going all the way to the outside line, trying to defend from Eszter Nemet. Checking her in his rearview mirrors. And around we go again. István Bernula already going defensive, trying to put his car in the middle of the road to prevent any overtaking from happening, then definitely not having the best of lines through the following corners, which is of course hampering his race times. However, as racecraft looks effective so far, but Eszter Nemet managing a better exit onto the start and finish straight. She will have to do it all from the outside line. István Bernula hard under braking. Also Zsombor Pinter getting himself into the mix with Egon Burkus close by. And it is now Pinter attacking Eszter Nemet. So this fared really well for István Bernula. He was under huge siege from Eszter Nemet into the first corner, but positioned his car very well and actually managed to open the door on the inside, and Zsombor Pinter immediately took that opportunity and is now splitting the two championship rivals. With just over 20 minutes left, we are still in the initial phase of the race, 2 laps under our belts. So there we go. István Bernula still leading, but now will be under pressure from Zsombor Pinter. Zsombor Pinter victorious the last time out in Brno. Now fighting for the home glory. Bigger fight between Adam Mesáros and Balázs Hartmann. This appears to be for P6 currently. Zsombor Pinter in the black car in second. Trying to slipstream past the race leader. Hard under braking again. And Bernula not even really going all the way to the outside line, exiting the final corner. He's basically just always sticking his car to the inside line, but Jombor Pinter making an aggressive move nevertheless, but he outbrakes himself. That was very opportunistic, and this might very well invite Esther Nemeth back into second. She's got to take the outside line through the second corner, and somehow Jombor Pinter just about manages to stay ahead. That was very aggressive from Jombor Pinter. He tried to take the lead, and he did momentarily, however was way too long into the first corner. And this gives a couple of meters of advantage to István Bernula. But look at that, the rest of the pack immediately seems to be closing in yet again. István Bernula would love to be focusing on his own race and take the best of lines, but he still has to check the rearview mirrors, and the opponents are quickly back together with him again. So the entire 1.4T class still close together, with Bernula leading, Frischmann being the last one, and then a little further behind it is Balázs György, already losing a couple of seconds to the rest of the pack. Now we have a little bit of time to focus a little further down the field. The two yellow cars, those are Egon Burkuš and Balázs Hartmann fighting together for fourth. And Adam Mesáros also trying to stick his car into the fight. There are contacts. Mesáros coming really aggressive. This is the 1.6 class further down the field, led by Daniel Nemes for the moment from Zoltán Čuty, András Bilko and Dobroslav Kárník. Our pole sitter, Richard Král, dropping all the way to the back of the field, presumably having an incident on that previous lap, but actually his lap times are really poor. I don't know what happened to Richard Král, but he's having issues in this race. Either way, back to the race lead. It is Adam Mesáros holding the fastest lap of the race so far. He's currently driving in 6th. Now actually already up in 5th as he dealt with Balázs Hartmann. Bernula under pressure from Pinter again. Esther Nemeth following them in 3rd from Burkuš, Mesáros and Hartmann. Adam Mesáros already piling pressure on Egon Burkuš in the fight for 4th. Pole sitters not really having the best races here this weekend. So Bernula leading from Jombor Pinter. These two a little further ahead from the rest of the pack. Esther Nemeth trying to follow them, but not really being successful. Bastian Frischmann sticking his blue and orange car down the inside on yesterday's race winner, Balázs Hartmann. Adam Mesáros in front of them. Already dealt with Egon Burkuš in their fight for 4th. Behind Frischmann, now actually ahead of Frischmann, is Benjamin Nagy, who exploited that fight in the first sector and gained 1 place from that. So fights happening all through the field. Balázs György in P9, already trailing the rest of the pack. by more than 4 seconds currently. Another fight between Bastian Frischmann and Benjamin Nať. Nať in the predominantly black car. Frischmann making a move, but this will be a big one! Whoa, Bastian Frischmann sent his car uncontrollably into the chicane, but somehow managed to catch it back, and I was really fearing that that might have been a big accident, because from the back view it looked like he completely lost control of his car and sent it through the second to last chicane. Luckily he managed to keep the car under control and finish the braking maneuver, but that was shaping up to be a big one. Fortunately that ended up well, and in the end actually even Frischmann got himself ahead of Nať, but Nať is back and they are still fighting side by side. A thrilling battle for 7th on the road. Frischmann now ahead, but not for very long. Nať making another move on the exit down the inside, which will become outside line for the next right-hander. In the meantime, Ester Nemeth under pressure from Adam Mesáros, and Mesáros getting himself up into 3rd. There is one of the slower cars that could very well be Richard Král. Yes, that's the golden 1.6 car. And that car driving really slowly in today's race. Something not quite right with that machine. But this is for the race lead. This is Bernula under huge pressure from Jean-Bor Pinter. Then it is Adam Mesáros and Ester Nemeth, followed by Burkuš and Hartmann. This is Frischmann in the blue and orange car from Benjamin Nať. "11 minutes to go." Completing lap 7 right now. Still round about 5 or 6 left. We're managing to lap the Hungarian track just under 2 minutes, and this is an opportunity for Jean-Bor Pinter. István Bernula leaving the door open. He seems to have made a terrible work of the braking maneuver into the first corner and presented himself to Jean-Bor Pinter. Pinter stuck his car down the inside and got himself ahead of the championship leader. He tried to take the place back, but unsuccessfully. So it is now Jean-Bor Pinter back in the lead. Well, in the lead for the first time in this race, but back in the lead in this championship. He's already won races. And Jean-Bor Pinter from 6th on the grid up to P1 for the moment, with just under 10 minutes left on the clock. This is shaping up to be a good race for Jean-Bor Pinter on his home soil. However, István Bernula is really not done with him just yet. Now the roles are reversed. Bernula following suit and slipstreaming past the new race leader. Will go hard under braking in the hotel section. Mesáros also closing into this fight. Mesáros so far the only one that has managed to lap this track under 1 minute 59 seconds. His fastest lap in 1:58.992. The previous one 1:59.4. while both of the race leaders have lapped in over 2 minutes. So he's now deleted more than 1 second from the gap on Bernula, and getting closer and closer to the fight for the race win. Still everything to play for. So just under 7 minutes left. A little gravel kicked up onto the racetrack in the final corner. Esther Nemet trying to defend P4 from Burkush and Hartmann. Her championship chances pretty much evaporating with this result, as most importantly the championship leader István Bernula is still ahead. Not leading the race anymore, but in P2. And this altogether must mean that István Bernula is on his way to clinch this year's Suzuki Swift Cup Europe title with 1 race to go. István Bernula, this would be his first ever championship success. Last year was won by Moritz Čermej, then Christoph Zellhofer in 2023, Fabian Orfandl the year before, then it was twice Gabor Tim in 21 and 20. Gabor Tim, by the way, won this championship also all the way back in 2011. Before him in 2019 and 18 it was Jan Antoszewski twice, then Bendeguz Molnar in 2017, János Čik in 2016, Bizuk Tomáš in 2015, Bence Balog in 2014, and then Daniel Nať, Zoltán Barkovič, Gabor Tim again, Ferenc Fica, Norbert Kiš, Tibor Assenbrenner, Peter Pantl, and the first champion of the series back in 2006 was a guy named Norbert Michelis. I believe that you've already heard of him 1 or 2 times. Zsombor Pinter, who's leading the race, is also clinching this year's Hungarian championship. And also the 1.4 Turbo Junior Championship. Pinter leading, but it's not gonna be a walk through the park in the final stages of the race, because the two countrymen and rivals are still very close behind. We've also got one of the back markers getting in the view. But making way for the faster cars nicely. Or even more than that. So the top trio still close together. Ester Nemet already in distant fourth, trailing the leader by more than 4 seconds. Then Burkuš behind, and Balázs Hartmann, yesterday's race winner, down in P6 today in the morning. But it is Bernula already going defensive from Adam Mesáros. Mesáros trying to line up for a move. This fight is now giving breathing space to the race leader Zsombor Pinter. There they are across the line yet again, and onto the final lap of the race. Race number 2 out of 3 this weekend. Pinter under huge siege from Adam Mesáros, yesterday's pole sitter and the qualifying winner. Sorry, not Pinter, but Bernula. Bernula under pressure. Zsombor Pinter little further ahead in the race lead. There he goes in the black car. Then the two brighter Swifts, one white, one rather silver. So the time is up, and we're about to finish the final sector of the final lap. István Bernula doing all he can to protect at least the second place. It is going to be enough for him either way, because Ester Nemet is again further back, and she's not gonna take away any points from István Bernula, just like in yesterday's race, which means that István Bernula is simply running away with it. Final push from Adam Mesáros. Bernula trying to go defensive very, very hard, barely even making the chicane, but now opening some space down the inside. There's contact, and Bernula closed the door very aggressively. But this is your race leader, Zsombor Pinter, taking a victory on his home soil. Bernula second across the line, with Adam Mesáros in close third. It was just under quarter of a second between the two. Ester Nemeth finishing 4th on the road from the pole sitter Egon Burkuš. Balázs Hartmann, yesterday's race winner, in 6th from Benjamin Nagy and Bastian Frischmann. Then it is Balázs György in P9. That is for the 1.4 turbo class. This is one of the back markers, not the 1.6 class leader. That was Ferenc Hartmann as the first finisher from the 1.6 class. However, he is in 15th overall, which means that he's 6th in his class. We're going to have to wait a little bit for the class leaders. There they are. Daniel Nemeth leading from Zoltán Čuty. And through the final section of corners they go. And there it is, the race victory. You could also see the hand in the air, punching the air as he came across the line. It was Daniel Nemeth taking the victory in the 1.6 category from Zoltán Čuty, and András Bilko completing the podium. Dobroslav Kárník in P4 from Armin Töre, Ferenc Hartmann and Richard Král. But it would already be István Bernula taking the championship for 2025. Crucially beating Ester Nemeth for the second time in 2 attempts on the final weekend of 2025. Still last race coming up a little later on. Let's just check the time schedule for Sunday for the last race, last day of 2025. We're going to be back at 10:45 with the second race of the Clio Cup Bohemia. Then after the lunch break with the final race of TCR Eastern Europe at 12:25. And then to close the season with the final race of Swift Cup Europe just after 2 p.m. And that will be all, not for today, but also for 2025. And then we'll be back next year as well. And again, with a brand new calendar, which is not only shaping up, but being finalized these days. So also watch our websites and social networks to catch up with the latest updates as to see where we're going to be racing next. But it will be all for the second race of the weekend from Suzuki Swift Cup Europe, with Zsombor Pinter taking victory from István Bernula and Adam Mesáros also confirmed in graphics. You could also see how close it was across the line between second and third placed drivers. Ester Nemeth in 4th from Egon Burkuš, Balázs Hartmann, Benjamin Nagy, Bastian Frischmann and Balázs György, and also Daniel Nemeth making it to the overall top 10 for the victory in the 1.6 class. But with that, it would be from now a very warm goodbye.